I kind of wonder too from your, on the investment side, because like, how do you kind of look at maybe tools that have not transitioned in, the network yet? At what stage do you kind of like look at that and say, hey, here's enough to where we know that that tool does have,
Hmm.
the network effect kind of kicking in, or maybe the potential, right?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't, I can't think of any company that says like, I'm going to start SaaS and then I'm going to build a network, right?
Mhm.
And then be successful. I think we're still kind of in that phase, but what we're starting to see more and more of are like SaaS-based companies that, or SaaS-based or like user-generated, like a Yelp as an example, move into marketplaces to find ways to increase their revenue, right? But it's funny, like I haven't, like we run into a lot of companies that that position themselves as first like SaaS and then eventually will build that market, but we haven't really seen what that, like those really unfold
Yeah.
yet. I think it's still early, right? Because most of the time it's just like, if any, I think the big challenge for investors, because we're not all that sophisticated, right? It's just like, if you come to us and you say like, we're a SaaS enabled marketplace, then we're just like, well, what should we measure you against? Are you
Yeah.
SaaS or are you a marketplace? Right. And so, and it's good to have a little bit of both, but I think that, I think it really changes your focus, right?
Mhm.
Like, are you like, when we're building SaaS, we're kind of more focused on one side than the other, right? When we're building a marketplace, we're obviously thinking about both. So I think in the very early stages, my advice is always like pick one, but it's hard to say like I'm both.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might be like thinking about it too much just because I've been
Yeah.
having so many conversations about it
Yeah.
lately. It's like one of those things. But yeah, I definitely, I see on like the operator founder side, like sometimes the founders don't specifically know themselves. So they're trying to really kind of figure that out, and they're kind of in pitch mode too. So they're just kind of like getting
Yeah.
feedback and like, okay, what do they want to see for the sake of kind of, for a fundraise too,
Right. And it's
while they're
funny
trying to figure it
because
out.
I think the best thing to do in those cases where you have like some hybrid business model is
Yeah.
just to own it and just to say like, hey, I'm neither SaaS, I'm neither a marketplace, right? What matters is the revenue and that
Yeah.
it's predictable. And, so last week, was it last week or the week before, I wrote about API as a marketplace, right?
Mhm.
And like, and it's so funny because it's really to me just like a business model, right? What I define Shippo, which is kind of like Stripe for shipping, or
Mhm.
Patch, our other portfolio company, which connects like carbon offset developers with retail or brands who want to offset their emissions. But they do these through APIs. What I call them marketplaces. Yes, in some ways, like the way that their businesses, or rather the way that they build their businesses, but do they report on GMV? Not so much, right? At the end of the day, it's just revenue. So I think it's okay to have these hybrid business models as long as you know what your North Star is, like what's most important. And also, like if you don't fit in the bucket, don't put yourself in the bucket, because
Yeah.
then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage in either category A or category B.
Yeah.
If I say I'm a SaaS enabled marketplace, then I'm like, oh, that's really hard, right?
Yeah.
Versus like, this is how I'm making revenue, right? And I have like the stickiness of SaaS, but also the defensibility and the network effects of a marketplace. That's way more compelling, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, we all try to like find some bucket though for at least operators, like kind of early, just
Yeah.
that way we think, hey, here's a specific direction and here's the next steps.
Hmm.
But sometimes,
It's
that's
good
not.
to be a unique butterfly.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you feel like you're seeing more of that kind of like hybrid business models, like slash hybrid marketplaces recently, or?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, SaaS enabled marketplaces like the biggest example of that, right? And and we're even seeing more of that in terms of, um, it's so funny. Very rarely do we see like marketplaces going into SaaS, or definitely SaaS going to marketplaces. So we definitely see that, mostly because I think even incumbents, right, or like more mature SaaS companies look to increase their revenue through marketplaces, right? So people look up and they're like, you know, if you're a seed company and you look up and you see like a Series B company doing this, you're like, ah, that's the right model. So we definitely see more of that. And also we start to see just like, or if not marketplaces, these kind of like app platforms, right? So it's all cool. I think it's just part of increasing obviously revenue, but offering defensibility once you can have kind of third party or other people in your ecosystem contributing to the betterment of your own product.